You're listening to Turi Ryder's She Said What podcast. I'm Turi, along with Marcy Persky. If you don't care about food, or you don't eat food, or you eat only teensy tiny microscopic portions of food, don't listen to this podcast. I just got back from LA, and now I understand why they make movies there with very skinny people. Food. I went to LA, and the first thing that I've noticed is there's Midwestern Slim, and then there's LA Slim. And LA Slim is a whole other order of slim. I can take a picture of the standing floor lamp in my studio, and I can tell you that the stand of the standing floor lamp is bigger around than several of the people I visited with in LA this past week.
Did you yell at them to eat a sandwich?
I didn't. I did not. They're eaters. They're all of them eaters, but two of them have definitely not been through menopause. They're young ladies, and they've always been slim, and they've always been tall, and they've always been lovely. But something about LA, it's just, I can't explain it except for this. Every single restaurant meal I ate in LA, except for one, was execrable. Just inexpensive and bad. The one great restaurant meal that I had two. One of them was at this roadhouse. I went out there for the follow-up ceremony for my girlfriend. Yeah, she's been dead a year, and then you unveil the gravestone after a year, and it's a little ceremony. And we found by accident at the bottom of the canyon, her cemetery is at the top of this canyon, and then when you go down, there's a roadhouse, an honest-to-goshness roadhouse out in
cemetery roadhouse.
And I could see how you could think that. I could see how it might not give a good appearance.
I wouldn't trust their food.
Well, we did. We asked where they eat, and they said, well, there's this roadhouse. And I loved it because right across the top, it says American, Mexican, and Ethiopian food. And I was like, only in America would this work. So we ate there after the funeral, and then I booked a long table there for after this much smaller 1-year unveiling ceremony. And that meal, believe it or not, was amazing. All the food was fresh, and the special bread was fresh, and everybody liked their American food who had American food. I was happy. That was my...
What does Mexicopian food taste like?
Mexicopian? Well, I ordered the Ethiopian vegetarian thing, which they serve on this kind of Ethiopian sourdough bread that acts as a plate and silverware. You would hate it. Everything in there you would hate. You would hate the greens. You would hate the lentils. You would hate the yellow peas. You would hate the cabbage.
Sounds like it, yes.
You would hate all of it. But there were other people who had like double burgers with cheese, and other people who had burritos. So everybody was happy. And
my roadhouse is Texas Roadhouse.
Well, they had all I think the Roadhouse American stuff was your average, burgers, fries, sweet potato fries, all that stuff. So that was a good meal. And then I went with my girlfriend to a concert that she was emceeing, and she's a big radio star in LA. And the guy who was producing this concert was a first-time producer, and her companion went out the day before. He spent years in the music business, and he took a look at this place, and he's like, oh, they're in trouble. This place is not set up. There's no way that this is ever going to happen. And sure enough, we spent the day there watching people be so mishandled. Like this was supposed to be a jazz festival, high-end jazz festival, and the audience was a very accomplished, professional, wealthy class of people, and they all had these super fancy cars, and the parking lot had not even been mowed. So these Porsches have these nettles just going right down the side of them, and the big fancy SUVs could maybe clear them, and then all the beautifully attired women got out. You could hear them screaming right into the nettles. The whole parking lot was rocks and nettles, and I got news for you. The place where the concert was no better. It was rocks and nettles and chairs that were rented that collapsed under people. And then
oh my gosh,
some people had paid like thousands of dollars for these special tables with food and umbrellas and chairs near the stage. There was none of it. And they'd sold a bunch of people the identical tickets. It was a complete festival of misery. But people were cool until and even then they were well behaved. The main act calls up my girlfriend and says, "You better get out of there. They haven't paid me and I'm not going on." so, so
Oh no.
yeah, we had to run for it, politely and at a dignified pace. But there was no backstage. People were like, "Well, how will I get in?" There was no security. Well, just waltz in. Nobody cares. It,
That's why I stick with punk rock festivals because it's expected. All of that is expected.
oh, good point. I should tell my
Yes.
friend, the jazz queen. So,
Yes.
yeah, you don't have to worry about nettles when you're driving a 1996 Corolla, probably. So,
Bicycle.
bicycle.
Like
I don't think
mostly
you could
bicycles.
not bicycle to this place if you tried. But when we ran away, we ended up at a lovely spot near the water and we had a lovely dinner. That was nice. But then I started eating all this LA crap. There was some place that had reservations and they didn't have our reservation, but they seated us anyway. And it was, I learned something about myself. Small plates, those small plates to share.
Yeah.
That's a way of charging $1 zillion for like a hummingbird sized portion that you're supposed to split three ways. And it takes me right back to my childhood, which I've already explained was a scene
Yes.
where my parents would buy not enough of something and make all five of us share it. So I get really nutty. I'm like, I watch what everybody's taking. I don't relax. I don't listen. I'm like, how much of that pasta did they take? And finally, I just said, well, we'll just get more of everything. There's nothing relaxing about having a tiny little plate of food that you have to split between three or four people. That's not relaxing. And
No.
that may be why people in LA weigh 15 pounds and are 6'2", because they all share these small plates. Here's the thing, you have to pretend that it just doesn't matter. I know you hate Brussels sprouts, but one of the dishes they sent, my young friend ordered a plate of these fancily cooked Brussels sprouts. And there were like 5 Brussels sprouts, and I think it cost $10, and they were raw inside. And I'm like, I just can't even fight this anymore. It's all so bad. And I paid some enormous check and thought, okay, that's a learning experience. But
See,
unfortunately, what?
that's why Midwest thin is so much better
Yeah,
because we know how to cook and we know how to eat.
yeah, yeah, yeah. My friends, my hosts were wonderful. They don't cook a lot, but when they cook big portions. And they did things like order giant amounts of mac and cheese, which made me very happy and 2 pounds heavier when I returned. So I thought I had learned my lesson, but no, I kept being exposed to these horrible scenarios over and over and over. Like any place I would go, one of my lovely friends, I suggested we have lunch and I picked out a place and he said no, it wasn't a place where he would eat, and so we found this local chain. Have you ever been at a corporate boardroom meeting where they cater in lunch and it looks like it should be good?
Well, I thought the chopped liver was chocolate mousse once, so
Oh,
I
no, no,
guess.
no, no. No, I mean like they have roasted vegetables and they
Yeah.
have, apparently LA has decided that in the name of remaining LA thin, they're going to re-engineer some foods that should have fat.
Oh no.
So I thought, okay, well, I can get falafel. That'll be good. And for those of you who've never had falafel, it's a deep fried garbanzo beans with lots of garlic and parsley, and because it's deep fried, it's really tasty. Like everything deep fried is really tasty. So I spend some time perusing the menu. I decide to order this. Oh, and since it's Middle Eastern, it usually has pita bread and sesame stuff. And so I get to the register, and the first warning, well, we just serve this with our house bread, not pita bread. All right, it's not a Middle Eastern place, no problem. And we don't serve it with the sesame dressing. Like, well, that doesn't seem too sensible, but okay. And then the final shot is, and we don't deep fry our falafel, we grill them.
What?
That's what. But
What?
by then there's a line behind me, and I don't want to make my host feel bad, so I just say, "Okay, fine." So what you get, it's kind of like that scene in Five Easy Pieces, take away the take away the
Yeah.
hold the toast and hold the right. It's like that scene. What you get is some mashed up chickpeas. That's what you get.
How
Grilled
do you
mashed up.
grill mashed up chickpeas?
I
Don't the
don't
chickpeas fall between the grates?
That's another terrible joke on you. I don't know how they did it. I think they painted on the grill marks. I don't know
I'm
how they.
seriously, I
I'm
want to know
s-
how you grill
I
chickpeas.
seriously wondered about it. I seriously did. I thought, how did they get this stuff to stick together? Because as soon as you stuck a fork in it, it exploded all over your plate. And since you had no pita bread to stick it in, you
Ugh.
just ended up with like baby food. That's what it was. I ate baby food. That was the second horrible meal. And then the third horrible meal was because I was taking my hosts out and the place they wanted to go was all booked up. That's another thing. There was like so much for COVID. Places were just, you have to make reservations. They're all reserved for like 4 hours at a stretch. You can't get in. So the place that they called about that morning was all booked up from like 12 in the afternoon till 6 at night. So they picked another place because they wanted to be by the water. And so it becomes like this. If the place has room, it's awful. That's the new math. We,
Great.
we went in there and I had to I had to make myself eat the food. Here's LA. They grow fresh figs right on the trees. Here's what I got on my salad. You know, when you buy dried figs and you think I'm going to use them in something and then you forget about them and a year and a half later you find them at the back of the pantry and you go, what the heck is this? And then you,
In my house, it's hard fig Newtons.
well,
They turn into weapons.
yeah, well, I pulled this thing out of my salad. I'm trying to, with some archaeological skill, figure out what is this? And I realized that nobody but me probably ever orders the salad with figs on it. And these things have been sitting in the back of the pantry, the kitchen of this place. And we were sitting outside, and I expect that because it's by salt water, there'll be some rust. But it looked like any minute now, parts of the balcony might fall down on our heads, or the lamps might fall down on our heads. And it was like some parody of a horrible drunken Florida bar. They had some mediocre Jimmy Buffett approximator in there. It was scary. This is what you get. And again, $1,000,000. So I've given up on eating in LA unless I'm eating at people's houses. And may I also suggest that if you visit friends in LA who weigh 12 pounds and are 7 feet tall, that you bring them the specialty of whatever it is that your area serves. Because I was ever so grateful that I had brought 2 Chicago deep dish pizzas. They served us all well.
There you go.
Yeah. Just think of it as camping, only you don't have to build a fire. Just pack in your own food in LA and you should be okay.
That sucks.
Oh, and then my girlfriend insisted that we try this fabulous French bakery around the corner from her house. I bought one pastry. It cost $16.
Oh, no.
I don't think there is a pastry made in the world that is worth $16, but I would challenge someone to prove me wrong about that as long as I don't have to pay for it. If you've made it this far, chances are you've been enjoying Turi Ryder's She Said What podcast, in which case you might also like my book, She Said What? A Life on the Air. You can find that at your neighborhood independent bookstore or on Amazon. Marcy and I really appreciate your good reviews wherever you care to leave them. Your kind words help the podcast grow. Thanks.